I'd like to begin by asking you all a question. You have to participate, okay? It's not a right or a wrong. It's a reflection question. So first, who would say they're a decisive person? You can raise your hand. If everybody else who didn't raise their hand has demonstrated perfectly, who has a hard time making decisions? Is indecisive, you might say. Maybe you're struggling to figure out which one you are. That means you're indecisive. And then the third category, for those maybe who didn't raise your hands at all, who regrets their decisions after they've made them? And stews. So I've said that this morning's Parsha, Re'eh, really is on the theme of choice. It opens with a pretty enigmatic claim. It says, Ro'eh, Anochi noten lifnechem hayom bracha uklala. Look, God says, I've put before you today blessing or curse. And we are, in a way, struck by the veracity of this statement, that in our own lives, every single day, we have to choose. On the one hand, the choices that we make can be entirely banal. They're not moral choices. They're low-hanging fruit. They're simple. What am I going to wear? It's not a good or a bad question. There's no right or wrong. And yet, making the choice, making many, many choices in any day can drain us. And we're left feeling like we don't know what's right or wrong. I heard it said once that when President Obama was in office, that he only had one suit. I don't know if this is myth or reality, but that it was like one choice that he didn't have to make so that he would have the energy to make 1,000 other choices in any given day. And the same is really true for each of us. Maybe our stakes are a little bit lower in our daily lives, but any human being is living with the daily work of choosing this or that. Yes or no? And in a way, what I want to reflect on this morning isn't the content of the choices that we make, but rather the way we feel about our choices. Alan Liu wrote a book, an important book for this season, if you haven't heard of it. It's called This Is Real and You Are Completely Unprepared. This is real and you are completely unprepared. The Days of Awe as a journey of transformation. It's a wonderful book. It's very readable. You could read it every year at this time of year, and you would reveal new things for yourself. So Rabbi Alan Liu of blessed memory has this very deep teaching that this season is so relevant to our lives. The work that we're doing at this time of year is so essential. And what he points out is when we hear these words in Parshat Re'eh, which is at the gateway to the high holidays, we're beginning the month of Elul tonight. Actually, technically, tonight is the last day of Av, and Monday will be Elul, but fine. He says, pay attention to your life. Every moment in it is profoundly mixed. Every moment contains a blessing and a curse. Everything depends on our seeing our lives with clear eyes, seeing the potential blessing in each moment as well as the potential curse. Every moment contains the capacity for good and evil, life and death, a blessing and a curse, and everything depends on our choice. In order to receive this Torah, which I believe is deeply true and also very hard to internalize, because it asks us to be in a heightened state of awareness about every single moment of our lives, I want to share a story that I would call low-hanging fruit, about a choice that I made that was so inconsequential. And I want to share it in this way because what I want to do is help you see the way that when we make choices, we sometimes get stuck on what we lose in any given moment. Every single choice comes with loss and gain, and we can get stuck when we make choices. So this summer, Freddie and I were so blessed. We went on a trip and we were in a national park. And one day, the first day, we tried to go on a certain hike, and we got there, and it was like the parking lot was packed. Like, I've never seen such a busy parking lot. I was like, is this the most popular hike and the most popular day of the year? And it was, in fact, so busy that we ended up driving around and ultimately determining that we couldn't do that hike, and we had to go somewhere else. And I spent at least 20 minutes feeling mad at myself that I had tried to go on the popular hike. Oh, why didn't I do more research? Why didn't I know? And then we found ourselves on a beautiful, uncrowded hike that was, you might say, exactly where we needed to be. And if I couldn't have internalized that lesson, the very next day, we made a plan. We're going to go rent bicycles. And, I guess I'm learning my lesson. You have to make your plans in advance. I rolled into the bicycle shop at 10:30. Hi, we'd like to rent 2 bicycles. And they were like, well, do you have a reservation? And I said, no. And they were like, okay, well, there are no bicycles left for today. So then, not feeling, so steeped in regret that I hadn't rented the bicycles, we got back in the car and tried to go back to the hike that we had missed the previous day. And once again, lo and behold, the parking lot was just stuffed with cars. And I said, oh my God, how can this be happening? We've now spent 1 hour making a series of bad choices. We chose which one is it going to be? We chose the wrong one every single time. And so we said, okay, we have to recalibrate. And we went to another hike, and we drove up to it, and they said, oh, you have to have reservations to drive up. I was like, what is going on? And then a little spark happened. Well, wait, do you have to have reservations to walk up the mountain? And they said, of course not. You can walk anywhere you want. You just can't drive up. So we parked our car, and 2 miles, 2 hours later, we were on top of a gorgeous mountain, feeling like this is exactly where we needed to be. For me, the hike was not the right or wrong choice. It was how I felt about the process of making choice. How much did I get stuck in that moment of having felt like I made the wrong choice? And how much did getting stuck in the worry that I had made the wrong choice get in the way of moving forward with the day, and in a sense, moving forward with my life? In any of the choices that we make in life, they have consequence. That is what the Torah is saying. Every single choice we make comes with a blessing and a curse. Every single choice we make comes with a consequence. And yet, if we get stuck in the fact that we chose, and that then we experienced the outcome, that is not truly living. I coach many people through choices, and often what I observe is that the outcome is really not what matters, it's how they feel about the choice they're making. I coached my own loved one in my life through a very hard choice this summer, and one of the hardest things was hearing this person say on the other side, I think I made the wrong choice. I'm so mad at myself that I wasn't brave enough to do the thing that I think I should have done. And I said, it's not about the outcome. It's about how you feel about it. You get to live with the choices that you made and then figure out how you move forward. This whole season is about a process of teshuvah, of return. And so, we open with the words from our parsha. See, I set before you this day blessing and a curse. We're asked to pay attention to our lives, to take every moment seriously, and also to not get stuck in the fact that sometimes we get it wrong. Sometimes we take the wrong path. It is literally never too late to turn around and try again. In one realm, our moral choices can be much harder than these low-hanging choices. How do I sit with what is right and wrong objectively in the world. And I want to speak to that because I think that as we sit this time of year and think about trying to hear our own direction better, as we begin to do the work of paying more attention to where we are blaming ourselves when we get it wrong, I think that the same is actually true of our own trying to understand morality in our own lives. In a way, synagogue is supposed to be a space where we learn about our morality and we learn about our spiritual choices. And my prayer for us is that we can begin to do this practice of noticing our own feelings about the choices that we make. Because when we don't tend to our emotional lives, when we don't understand the things we feel about the choices that we make, we end up tripping into territory that we don't always understand. So as I'm speaking this, I feel the abstraction in it. But what I want to offer to you is that we don't have such a distance to travel to understand what is right and wrong in our own lives and what is right and wrong for others. We actually don't always get to experience direct consequence in our lives. We don't always show up late and are told, well, you can't have a bike. Sometimes we're rewarded for our lateness. And yet, in the realm of good and bad, life and death, blessing and curse, it can take time for our choices to reveal themselves, and the work nonetheless is for us to truly reflect on what we understand to be right and wrong for ourselves. That's difficult work, and that's why all month we hear the call of the shofar, inviting us again and again to turn and return and return. And so when you're stuck in your own life, on the choices that you've made, on your own interaction with one another, and when you're asking the question, truly asking, was that right or wrong? Find a way to get over your fear of what you've done and to find the place for connection. Because even a moral wrong can be repaired. I truly believe that. And so when God says to us later in our book of Devarim, not just that God has put before us blessing and curse, but also that we are meant to choose life. That act of letting go of judging ourselves for the choices that we've made is the essential work of choosing life in any moment in our days. I bless you all that this be a month of productive discomfort, that Elul can be a time where you look inward and you find perhaps mistakes, but also a willingness to grow and to learn. Shabbat Shalom. We're going to